Okay, this is for my AP Euro class. I hope everybody's doing well. Please try to contact me every day so I know everything's okay. I do worry about everyone, and I hope everyone is well, as I hope your families are doing well. Okay, just to remind you, I put some links up on YouTube, on YouTube. You need to take advantage of these as we head towards the exam. You know that the rules are different. I will get back to you on more specifics as I get them. I expect them on April 3rd. Uh, just quickly, I'd like to make sure that you have been reviewing the Renaissance, that you are comfortable with the causes, that is the economic causes. Remember, the Turks closed down Constantinople, they conquered Constantinople, they closed down the Silk Road trade, and they monopolized it. They still needed a European middleman, so that they had to partner up with the Italian maritime states, and that brought in a great deal of wealth into the Italian peninsula, and it fueled the Renaissance. In addition to that, you had a lot of Christian scholars, classical scholars, trained in the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople, who fled once the Turks conquered Constantinople in 1453. They fled and they basically followed trade to the Italian city states. And that inspired the interest in reviving classical Greek and Roman knowledge and institutions. And remember, that is the definition of the Renaissance. The attempt by this new mercantile elite in the Italian city-states to revive Greek and Roman classical knowledge and institutions. That is the essential definition of Renaissance. In addition to that, you really do need to remember how the Renaissance developed humanism. So make sure you understand Pico della Mirandola and humanism, also civic humanism, which is support for the new participatory types of government that developed in Renaissance Italy, the oligarchic republic of Venice, the oligarchic republic of Florence. These were very, very different from the traditional feudal monarchies that existed in Northern Europe. And this was a response to a mobilized mercantile elite that no longer depended on land wealth, but generated their economic wealth from commerce, banking, other forms of more proto-capitalist or proto-bourgeois institutions and means. You also have to understand how the Renaissance changed, went from the classical Italian Renaissance to the Northern Renaissance, and the kind of focus shift from classical studies to criticisms of the Bible and the Roman Catholic Church, more direct criticisms than had taken place in the classical Renaissance of Italy. Important among these is Desiderius Erasmus, Erasmus, and his book In Praise of Folly. His argument was that the church had made significant mistakes and was continuing to propagate or teach these mistakes. So it was in praise of folly. And that this should be rectified by closely studying the scriptures themselves and determining whether the church had the correct interpretation, and if they didn't, a reformation of the church. So this leads to Martin Luther's 1517 publication or posting of the 95 Theses. Luther basically uses Northern Renaissance humanism to attack the church, and he goes much further than Erasmus by publishing the 95 Theses, where he argues that all believers are priests, that faith alone saves, because the church has incorrectly interpreted the idea of good acts or the sacraments as necessary to salvation, and that one should look to the Bible for themselves to determine what God's will really is. So the whole idea of all believers in the priesthood, not depending on the intermediary effect or function of the church. This weakens the church even further, and eventually will split the church. Because after Luther, you have John Calvin, who argued for predestination and the elect of God. And this has political consequences because Calvin and the followers of Calvin will interpret that idea to mean that the churches and believers have a duty to determine whether the political leaders of their kingdoms or their states are doing the right thing. That is, if they are governing legitimately, because if they are, they're only legitimate rulers if they're following the dictates of God as set out by the Bible and as interpreted by the elect of God. So that if kings deviate from that, they are not to be supported, in fact, opposed quite vigorously. This is the ideology that will lead to the English Civil War between 1642. The king, Charles I, is executed in 1649, and 1650, where Oliver Cromwell takes up the leadership of the parliamentary opposition to the king. And as I said, executes the king and then sets up a protectorship. He becomes High Lord Protector of the Commonwealth. It also will lead eventually to the Glorious Revolution of 1688, and that is important for you to understand because it is the beginning of constitutional government in England. And England becomes, after 1688, a constitutional monarchy, whereas before it was the divine right traditional monarchy. But this is all kind of built up by the Northern Renaissance and then the Protestant Reformation, which again, the causes of the Protestant Reformation I'll take up tomorrow or the next day. I hope everyone is safe, and I'm going to stop right here.